where season 1 was trying to establish so much all at once with the different the timelines and the variants and all these new characters, where this feels like a lot more of a focused storyline. So because of the variant storylines kind of out of the way, we're getting a lot more of a proper story, and it reminded me a lot more like Andor, where it feels a lot more focused, and I really appreciate that, especially in these first 4 episodes.
It felt like it was telling a more thorough story. I think a lot of the criticism that Marvel has gotten in their TV shows is, does it need to be X amount of episodes? We have a lot of what feels like fillers sometimes, or a lot of just one plot point really overextending itself.
Kiwi's character, I think he's a great addition to the cast. I think everyone that's part of it and their chemistry together is fantastic. And it gives off this Doctor Who vibe, which I felt like
very Doctor Who.
It was
definitely
almost,
Doctor Who vibe.
Almost there in the first season, but this second season just really, really brings it out.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Loki Season 2. My name is Shahbaz, and joining me in the TVA today are my fellow time assaulters. They assault time. They don't really protect it, I think. You know, they're more like they're trying to just ruin everything and make their own sacred timelines. I've got Daniel and Anthony. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, I mean, Gods of Mischief was there. My fellow Loki variants, my fellow variants, you know, that was right up there
variants,
for you too.
I wouldn't want you guys to my variants.
Well, I mean, we've gotten confused for one another.
We do.
Multiple times.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I sometimes don't know who I'm talking to.
Oh, okay. So one of our own does it as well too. That's
an issue. That sounds
there you
like
go.
You need to go to a doctor.
No, you guys are just you guys are like one person sometimes, so it's hard to like figure out which one is this variant.
Which is
there's only one of me,
one or the lighter one?
There's only one variant of me, which is me,
and thank God for that. And that is Anthony right there.
He's a
Anthony.
Nexus being.
Yes, Anthony. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm enjoying my free time right now because it's been busy here at the movie podcast.
What free time? Like we're recording right now. We're doing work still.
No, but I mean, like in terms of just being able to do all these crazy things, we've been editing.
Oh my God,
we have game reviews coming out,
playing some games. Yeah,
this is my free time right now.
Yes, we at the Movie Podcast have been doing a lot more like video game related, and obviously we've talked about it before. We want to approach games from a cinematic angle, so stay tuned because there will be some really cool video game episodes and reviews coming out very, very soon. Right now, we literally are powering through 2 video games at the same time, which has been different. I'd say I've never had to do that in my life. I've never had to, play 2 video games and like.
I mean, we could say what the 2 games are because one review's coming out tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, we can. So we have Assassin's Creed Mirage from our friends over at Ubisoft, and we have, of course, Spider-Man 2 from our friends at PlayStation and Insomniac Games. So been a bit of a crazy time, but we're definitely having a blast doing what we do, and of course, we're still watching movies and shows as well. So I feel like I need like a lot of eyes. Yes, and we're doing interviews as well. Oh my God, I need variants of myself.
I was going to say, it sounds like you need some variants so we could all, kind of get this work done together.
Absolutely, I do. Yes, of course. Of course, the show we are talking about today, again, is Loki. This is a highly anticipated show. The first season was such a huge hit for Disney+, and I remember when it came out, we were all loving it as well. And I do want to give a huge shout out to our friends over at Disney for letting us watch the show. We're so grateful to them. Of course, Season 2 will premiere October 5th, just before my birthday. So watch the show, and then right when it hits 12 o'clock, be like, maybe I'll go wish this guy happy birthday. You don't have to. It's no stress.
The whole world waits, and we just watch it to 6. On your birthday, and we celebrate with you. I don't know why we have to celebrate this show and your birthday together, but I feel like that's your wish.
Because it's Shay. Shay's just full of mischief.
That's
he's
right.
mischievous, so it makes sense.
I just feel funny because I feel bad for Disney's numbers now. They're like, no one watched it on the premiere date.
Why is everyone waiting? I mean, they've trained us to wait for 3 a.m. on the Friday. So now it's like, you know what? We're going to bump it up a few hours for us, which us in the East Coast, I think, really appreciate that change.
Absolutely, yes, we really do. Instead of watching shows at 3 a.m. now, it's much easier to watch them.
Look, I appreciate the West Coast. But come on, 3 a.m.? I can't watch something at 3 a.m. I got to go to work the next day. So having it, like, even for them, like 5 a.m. is a lot more reasonable to wake up to than 3 a.m. and watching a show, even if you're a very, like, fandom-based person.
Yeah, because West Coast will be getting at 6 p.m., which is nice. I mean, they're getting it earlier in their evening too, which is, I think, just beneficial for everybody. So that's nice.
Season 2 picks up pretty much right with the ending of last season left off. So we have all our lovely characters are back again. We have Tom Hiddleston, Sophia Di Martino, and we are welcoming back Owen Wilson, but also someone very new to the franchise who's had a really huge career in the past year or two, really. Quan, who we also had on the show, friend of the show. So a lot of great things about this show. We can't really talk about it. I want to kick it over to Daniel first for our first reactions.
So Loki season 2, like you weren't kidding, Shay. Like this legit picks up right as season 1 ends. And season 1 of Loki, we had 6 episodes of it. I really enjoyed my time with it, but every episode felt like it was just getting to like it was about to give us something, and then we would kind of like go down a different direction and wait. And we kind of had to wait our time. And I think what the first season of Loki did so well was establish the look and the feel and the rules of the TVA. And it really is, I think, to this day, the best looking Disney Plus series and in terms of on the Marvel side. And season 2 is exactly that. I've seen the first 4 episodes, so Disney sent us the first 4 episodes. I'm not going to talk in spoilers about any of them, but what I love so much about what this season does so far, I think it's stellar so far, is that it makes every episode feel important, and it feels like every episode I'm getting something, and I'm like, okay, this is a great episode. It's establishing some great concepts and characters, and then it ends, but it doesn't end in a way where it's like a giant cliffhanger. It just ends in a way that feels like, well, I have to tune in next week, but it never was anything like a bait to, the next episode. And I maybe think, they kind of established, or they kind of got the hang of like, okay, yeah, let's look at the story that we're going to tell over these 6 episodes and make it work and make it feel like a coherent story, where season 1 was trying to establish so much all at once with the different the timelines and the variants and all these new characters, where this feels like a lot more of a focused storyline. So because of the variant storylines kind of out of the way, we're getting a lot more of a proper story, and it reminded me a lot more like Andor, where it feels a lot more focused, and I really appreciate that, especially in these first 4 episodes. I think Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston are phenomenal together, as always, like they were last season. They are together a lot more this season, especially in those first 4 episodes. They are like a dynamic duo throughout, which I really, really liked. And like Shay said, a new player we have this season is Quan, who, yes, friend of the show. He's so fun. I think he's such a fun person to watch. Even though he's kind of acting the same in everything that we see him in, he's one of those. He's an actor that you just can't help but smile when you see him. Though he's so fun, and I think he brings a fun energy to the show. He plays Obi, who's basically wrote the TVA handbook, and I think he's really fun. But what the show is also doing is telling a larger story of the multiverse. And as soon as we hear multiverse now, my eyes kind of start to glaze over, because I feel like we've just done so much multiverse stuff, especially in the MCU and a bunch of other comic, like in the Flash and Across the Spider-Verse, and some have done it really, really well, like No Way Home, like Across the Spider-Verse. But the multiverse isn't the big, like, I think, it isn't the huge crux of this show for me so far. And that's what's good. I mean, obviously they're trying to protect the sacred timeline and protect the timelines from being destroyed, but it never feels like it's just jumping place to place for the sake of showing something cool. It feels like it is actually telling a really strong and coherent story that I feel like I would have read this story like in a graphic novel, in a Loki like limited series. Like it's actually really strong that way, and I really appreciate that. And we're getting a lot of characters that, obviously we're teased. Kang is a big player, especially in episodes 2, 3, and 4. There's a lot of Jonathan Majors in the show, so forewarning for those people who, if you're, either supporting him or not, this is the reality that, he is playing this character. And like, I'm just going to refer to him as a Kang, or Timely. His name is Timely in this variant of him. We saw, for those who watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the post-credit scene is a scene right from Loki. And it's like, he's kind of like a Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla type of person, where he's like making these inventions and creations, and then the kind of story kind of goes from there. But basically what I'm saying is the first 4 episodes, I was really surprised. This is a show that, even though I enjoyed season 1 a lot, Kate Herron, I thought, brought so much of herself to that first season. Now we're under new kind of showrunners, which are the showrunners from Moon Knight, which us here on the Movie Podcast, those 4 episodes of the show, or the entire series of Moon Knight, we were just like, we could take it or leave it. There was some cool stuff, but whatever. I think this season of Loki is a lot stronger than the first season so far. I'm really enjoying this story. And I think because it's a lot more of a focused story, I'm having a great time with it.
Yeah, for me, the first episode was great. Like there was a lot of action, like you're saying. It kind of picks up right away, and it felt like it was telling a more thorough story. I think a lot of the criticism that Marvel has gotten in their TV shows is, does it need to be X amount of episodes? We have a lot of what feels like fillers sometimes, or a lot of just one plot point really overextending itself. So far, Loki season 2, I mean, I've only done the first 2, and I really enjoyed where the story is kind of going. I really enjoyed what they're trying to say. I am curious to see how the rest of the episodes that we've gotten kind of fare out, but it just seems a lot more purposeful, and then that's what's making me happy. It feels like a lot of the criticism that Marvel's gotten, which is why I'm assuming this season, it felt like it took a little bit longer to kind of get out. I felt like they were filming it years ago is what it really I remember.
Seriously, yeah.
That I think they took a lot of that feedback and were like, okay, let's see how much we can like really trim down and focus on here. So I like where this is going. I mean, I'm a big fan of what Tom Hiddleston and Sophia Di Martino kind of do. They have great pairings. They're really good. Owen Wilson always is a blast. He's another one of those people that in pretty much everything he does, he's always just Owen Wilson. But you kind of just need a little bit of Owen Wilson in your life to get the ball rolling, especially in a show like this where there's so much seriousness happening. Owen Wilson has a way of making that serious moment still just feel like it's not really a big deal. Wow. Like, what's the big problem?
Oh, wow.
And it's like, but like, dude, the second timeline's messed up. Like, we got to fix it. So there's a lot of really great stuff in the show, and I'm really excited to see where it kind of goes. But Anthony, would love to get your first reactions.
I think the biggest thing for me this season is the achievement in the look and the aesthetic, as well as the camera work that's been used in the first, like I only watched the first 2 episodes. So just from that point of view, it feels and moves different than the first season, because the first season, it established that look that kind of has that 50s, 60s aesthetic, almost like a secret
like
agent.
That analog, right?
Analog
like that very
look,
analog
yes.
look to it, yeah.
But it also, I feel like this season's a lot more British toned in a sense. Like it was shot on Pinewood, so I feel like a majority of production and the teams behind it are English teams, and I feel like they just brought that aesthetic, because that's the look and feel just feels a lot more moodier. The tones are
a lot of film grain as well too.
There's a lot
right?
of film grain,
it looks
and I think
grain.
I think that's what really like connected with the thing. The story is a huge part of it for sure, but when you add that level of grittiness and detail, it just draws me into a series like this. When my biggest issue with Ahsoka is it's just too clean. It's too clear. And when you have something that's clear, it doesn't make it believable, because it almost feels like you're just on set with them. When you add that grittiness, that film look, it feels like, okay, this is something that's captured that's not in our world. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed the first episode. I thought the costumes were fantastic. Owen Wilson wears this huge giant astronaut suit, and you just feel the weight of it on him. I think he's absolutely funny in the first 2 episodes. I think there's a really funny conversation between him and Tom Loki, as well as OB, and there's just this running joke between what's about to happen. I thought was really, really good. I enjoy time stories, but I also find them very, very confusing. So with Kang being the main villain and everything that's happening, I really recommend you watch the first season and then go into the second season, just because there's so much things that you forgot or understood what the TVA does. And I wish I watched the first season before going. Even the recap didn't do enough for me, because I just felt like I need
there's
to
a lot.
remember all this stuff. But getting back to the camera work, and this is what I don't remember from the first season, is the camera really moves with the actors and the actresses in this series. It's always on the go with him. It's never on a tripod. It's very handheld. There's very really good fluidness to it. And I don't know if you noticed that as well. Like it's just
100%.
it
Yeah.
follows them. They'll be running past and the camera will be running past them. It just felt like you're in it with them. Another big thing that I really, really enjoyed was Ki Wei's character. I think he's a great addition to the cast. I think everyone that's part of it and their chemistry together is fantastic. And it gives off this Doctor Who vibe, which I felt like
very Doctor Who.
it was
definitely Doctor Who vibe.
Almost there in the first season, but this second season just really, really brings it out. And when Tom Loki phases in and out, it's probably one of the most scariest things to hear, especially at night. Because it's this
it's
yell
very
of
unsettling.
Pain. And again, there's this running joke between him and Mobius that every time he shows up, it would be like this scary moment for him, for both of them. But I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to more episodes and that's a strange thing because Marvel for me at this point has kind of been not the greatest thing to watch, but I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, I think just to your point with the camera and the fluidity to it, that's what I think makes this feel so much more mature from the first season. And even when you look at Moon Knight also had that look to it where it felt a little bit more gritty and it had an interesting movement with the camera as well too. And I appreciate that a lot because it makes it feel a lot more lived in. And when you have a world that's so like the Loki aesthetic right as you've seen it, and it has like this warm vintage feel to it. But when you could have a character like Miss Minutes who gets a lot more to do this season, which I was so happy to see in the episodes 2, 3, and 4, the fact that you could have her standing side by side any of the characters and it feels right, like it doesn't ever feel like, oh, that looks like you just put a giant cartoon clock there. Like no, like it feels like these things could exist beside one another. And it's very similar to how I felt about having like Rocket Raccoon beside Tony Stark in Endgame or with the Guardians. Like you see it and you believe it. And I think that just goes to show like just how visually it works really well together. And I think the first season of Loki, again, I'm not too sure with this season, they use the volume a lot for that first season of Loki. And there, again, this is during a lot more into the COVID protocols and things like that. So there was a lot, like Anthony was saying, just kind of static shots where the camera isn't moving with these characters a lot. But you'll see when you're watching it, it feels super cinematic. It feels probably the closest that we've had a Marvel series on Disney Plus look like it's an actual movie that you'd see on the big screen. And that's why when we saw the post-credit scene with Ant-Man Quantumania, like it felt like it belonged. Like it felt like you could watch Loki on the big screen and you would have that through line between, the series and films, and it feels that way. And this is kind of what I want all the Disney Plus shows to feel like they are just an extension of what you could see on the big screen.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of that. The budget just feels higher. The quality just feels a lot better. Again, it feels like Marvel has been taking the criticism of their shows and applying it. I'm really curious for the next couple shows going forward how that actually fares, because again, this show was being made during the time of the criticism, so there could have been a lot more work done, and I'm excited to see where this continues to going forward. Again, we have Anthony and I still have 2 more episodes to kind of watch, so really curious to see where the rest of the season kind of takes place and where it moves forward. But yeah, really excited, and I love the character Loki, and I really want this show to be a hit. So yeah, let's see where it goes from there.
The biggest issue with a lot of these Marvel movies and series, it almost feels like it's leading up to something that's bigger, and it's almost trying to hype itself up to a point, like guess who's going to show up in this episode, or guess who's going to show up in that movie, or wait until this cliffhanger happens on this episode. And I feel that approach might have been best during that initial phase 1, phase 2 period where we're building the hype behind it. Marvel has the hype now. They don't need to build the hype, because I feel like you're just cheapening out the storyline and the characters to make a fan base happy, which they're never going to be happy because you'll never hit their expectations. So I think focusing on a story like this and just having it really character driven, story driven, and just really, really, really dive into those things. I know these two creators did the Moon Knight, which I feel like is very similar. They really focused on who Moon Knight is, but I also felt that it was not a great series, and it was very boring.
And they have the benefit of the doubt coming into season 2, where they don't have to worry about establishing all of that, right? So they could just go right into the story that they want to tell.
But yeah, I think this series really gives off a British vibe. I know I've said that many times, but it just feels like something I would have watched on BBC. It has like this really mystery driven aesthetic to it as well. Like, it's just, I know I've said aesthetic many times. My vocabulary is not
and the
the
score
biggest,
too.
so
Natalie Holt's killing it, like she did in the first season too.
Yeah.
This is so such a great score throughout.
And
where every episode I feel like feels like, almost from what I've seen, it feels like a season finale, because it has big moments, it has big story things happening. I'm like, oh, this is only episode 2, and we're already having these big things happening. And I'm like, and that's how you use 6 episodes. That's how you tell the story like this. I think they're killing it.
the vibe Marvel's been having for the past 5 years. I think this is the type of stories will kind of push you through that initial after end game type of what do we do next. And I think this is where they really need to focus, because Andor did the same thing, and that's why Andor is such a great show, and it will probably be one of the best shows ever on TV. And Loki has that potential of doing that as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, very curious to see where it goes. Of course, if you are watching Loki, make sure to join our Discord, have that conversation with us. We're going to be opening up a room, talking all about the show, and we really want to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think? Do you agree with this? Do you not agree? Where do you want Marvel to kind of keep going? There, we've talked about a lot in the show that there's a lot happening in the Marvel world, and it feels like finally they're starting to kind of slow down and kind of just refocus on what makes them the best at what they are. So really curious to see where it goes. Of course, you can also follow us on every single social media platform available out there. Make sure to check our show notes down below. Leave us a comment. You can write something on Spotify as well. We love reading them out, and we love having a great time with everybody here. Of course, we are the Movie Podcast, so we have new episodes that drop all the time, and we have some game reviews coming out very, very soon. So stay tuned for that as well. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.